The sun beat down on the small town of Eagle Ridge. It was a normal Sunday afternoon. Most stores were closed. Only a few people walked on the sidewalks. The town seemed peaceful, but not everyone in Eagle Ridge was good. Officer Frank Miller sat in his police car at the corner of Oak Street. He watched people with cold eyes. Frank was not what a police officer should be. He had been with the Eagle Ridge Police for 20 years. In that time, he hurt many people and got away with it. No one could stop him, because his uncle was the mayor and his cousin ran the police department. Frank was bored today. Sunday shifts were always slow. He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel and looked around for something interesting. That's when he saw her. A teenage girl rode her bicycle down Oak Street. She had long brown hair that bounced as she pedaled. She wore blue jeans and a red t-shirt. Frank recognized her right away. It was Lily Norris, the granddaughter of Chuck Norris. Everyone knew that Chuck Norris owned a big ranch outside town. The famous martial artist and movie star rarely came to Eagle Ridge, but his daughter and granddaughter lived there. Frank had always hated famous people. He thought they were better than everyone else. Well, Frank said to himself. His thin lips curved into a mean smile. Looks like little Miss Norris is out for a ride. He started his car and pulled away from the curb. The engine made a low growl as he drove slowly behind Lily. She didn't notice him at first. She was enjoying her ride, feeling the breeze on her face. Frank looked around. There weren't many people on this part of the street. Just an old couple walking their dog and a man checking his mailbox. No one who would cause him trouble. Perfect. He pressed down on the gas pedal. The police car moved faster. Frank turned, the wheel slightly to the right, aiming for the back of Lily's bicycle. He knew exactly what he was doing. The front of his car hit the back wheel of the bicycle. The impact wasn't very hard, but it was enough. Lily lost control. The bicycle wobbled and then tipped over. Lily fell hard onto the pavement. She cried out in pain as her arm and side scraped against the rough road. Frank hit the brakes and put on a fake look of surprise. He stepped out of the car slowly, trying to seem concerned. But anyone looking closely would see the small smile he couldn't quite hide. "Should have been more careful, miss," he said, standing over Lily. She looked up at him with pain and fear in her eyes. Streets can be dangerous these days. Lily wasn't fooled. She saw the look in his eyes when he hit her. She knew it was on purpose. "You did that on purpose," she said. Her voice shook. She tried to stand up but fell back down. Her arm hurt too much. Frank's face hardened. "That's a serious thing to say to a police officer. I was just driving and you swerved in front of me. Maybe you should learn how to ride that bike better." Old couple with the dog had seen everything. The man stepped forward. "That's not what happened," he said. "I saw you aim for her." Frank turned to the man with cold eyes. "You must be mistaken, sir. Maybe your eyes aren't what they used to be." The threat was clear in his voice. The old man took a step back, but he didn't look away. Other people were coming now. Someone had called an ambulance. Frank knew he needed to control the story. "This young lady had an accident," he announced to the small crowd. "I stopped to help. Please step back and give her some room." A woman pushed through the crowd. She had dark hair, like Lily, and the same green eyes. It was Kate Norris, Lily's mother and Chuck Norris's daughter. "Lily," she cried, kneeling beside her daughter. "What happened?" "He hit me with his car, Mom," Lily said, tears in her eyes. "The police officer hit me on purpose." Kate looked up at Frank with anger and disbelief. "Is this true?" Frank put on his most official face. "Ma'am, your daughter had an accident. She swerved in front of my vehicle. I couldn't stop in time." "That's not true," Lily said. "I was just riding straight. He aimed for me." The ambulance arrived then. The medical workers carefully checked Lily. They said she had a broken arm, many cuts and bruises, and maybe a mild head injury. They needed to take her to the hospital. As they lifted Lily onto a stretcher, she looked at Frank. "My grandfather will hear about this," she said. For just a moment, Frank felt a chill. Everyone knew the stories about Chuck Norris. But then Frank reminded himself that those were just movie stunts and internet jokes. In real life, Chuck Norris was just an old man, and Frank had the law on his side, or at least his version of the law. "Hope you feel better soon," Frank said with fake kindness. Then he returned to his car. What Frank didn't know was that the corner store across the street had security cameras. They had recorded everything, and the store owner, Sam Brown, had already saved the video. He didn't like Frank Miller. No one in town did. As Kate rode in the ambulance with her daughter, she made a phone call. "Dad," she said when Chuck Norris answered. "Something terrible has happened to Lily. A police officer here, Frank Miller, hit her with his car on purpose. She's hurt. We're going to the hospital now." There was a long silence on the other end of the call. Then Chuck Norris spoke. His voice was calm, but it held a strength that had never come from movie scripts or special effects. "I'll be there tomorrow," he said. In his ranch house, Chuck Norris put down the phone. He was 70+ years old now, but his eyes still held the same determination they always had. He went to his closet and pulled out a small bag. He began to pack a few things. Chuck Norris wasn't coming to Eagle Ridge to fight. He wasn't coming to show off kicks or punches. He was coming for justice, and justice didn't always need fists. Sometimes it needed something much more powerful: the truth. In the Eagle Ridge Hospital, Lily Norris lay in a white bed. Her arm was in a cast. Her head hurt, but she wasn't afraid anymore. She knew her grandfather was coming, and when Chuck Norris arrived, Officer Frank Miller would learn the true meaning of justice. 2 days passed. The news about what happened to Lily Norris spread through Eagle Ridge like fire. People talked about it in the diner, at the gas station, and in the grocery store. Everyone knew Officer Frank Miller was bad, but hitting a young girl with his car was a new low. At the hospital, Lily was doing better. Her arm still hurt in its white cast. The doctor said she needed to stay one more day to make sure her head was okay. Her mother, Kate, stayed with her the whole time, sleeping in the chair next to the bed. "When is Grandpa coming?" Lily asked on Tuesday morning. Kate looked at her phone. "He should be here soon. He texted an hour ago that he was close." As they talked, a dusty pickup truck pulled into the hospital parking lot. Chuck Norris stepped out. He wore jeans, boots, and a simple brown jacket. His face was tanned from years in the Texas sun. He looked like a normal older man, except for the strength in his eyes. That hadn't changed with age. Chuck walked into the hospital. People turned to look at him, not because he was famous, but because he moved with quiet purpose. The nurse at the front desk recognized him right away. "Mr. Norris," she said. "Lily is in room 215. "Thank you," Chuck said with a small nod. He took the elevator to the second floor. When he walked into room 215, Kate stood up. "Dad," she said, hugging him tight. Chuck hugged her back, then went to Lily's bed. His hard face softened when he saw his granddaughter. "Hey, kiddo," he said gently. "Grandpa," Lily said. She tried not to cry, but tears came anyway. "I knew you'd come." Chuck sat on the edge of the bed. He carefully took Lily's good hand in his. "Tell me what happened," he said. "Everything." Lily told him about riding her bike, how she saw Officer Miller watching her, how the police car came up behind her and hit her bike on purpose. She described the mean look in Frank's eyes and how he lied about it being an accident. Chuck listened without speaking. When Lily finished, he just nodded once. "This officer," Chuck said. "Has he done things like this before?" "Everyone in town is afraid of him," Kate said. "He's hurt people before and gotten away with it. His uncle is Mayor Miller and his cousin is Police Chief Miller." "I see," Chuck said. His voice was calm, but both Kate and Lily could see he was angry. Not the shouting kind of angry, the quiet, serious kind that was much more powerful. "Are you going to beat him up, Grandpa?" Lily asked. Chuck smiled a little. "That's not how real problems get solved, Lily. Violence is for movies. In real life, justice needs truth and evidence." He stood up. "You rest and get better. I'm going to find a place to stay in town for a while. You can stay at our house," Kate said. Chuck shook his head. "I need to move around town freely. I'll Get a room at the motel. As Chuck turned to leave, Lily called out to him. Sam Brown at the corner store has a video. He told Mom he recorded the whole thing on his security camera. Chuck nodded. That's good to know. Very good. He left the hospital and drove to the Eagle Ridge Motel. It was a small place with just 12 rooms. A teenage boy with red hair worked at the front desk. I need a room, Chuck said, for at least a week. The boy looked up and his eyes got wide. You're Chuck Norris. Yes, Chuck said simply. You're here because of what happened to your granddaughter, aren't you? The boy asked. Everyone's talking about it. I'm Billy Peterson. My dad is the district attorney. Chuck looked at Billy with new interest. Is that right? Does your father know about Officer Miller and what he did? Billy looked nervous. He checked, to make sure no one else was around. Everyone knows what Miller does, Billy said in a low voice. But no one can touch him. His uncle is the mayor and his cousin runs the police department. My dad tried to investigate him once, but the mayor threatened to fire him. Chuck took the room key from Billy. Thanks for the information. I'm in room 8 if you think of anything else that might help. After putting his bag in the motel room, Chuck drove to the corner store on Oak Street. Sam Brown was stocking shelves when Chuck walked in. Sam was in his 60s with gray hair and glasses. Mr. Norris, Sam said, coming over to shake his hand. I figured you'd show up sooner or later. I hear you have a video I should see, Chuck said. Sam nodded. Come to the back office. In the small office, Sam showed Chuck the security video on a computer. It was clear as day. Frank Miller drove straight at Lily's bike. It wasn't an accident. No one could watch that video and think it was. Have you shown this to the police? Chuck asked. Sam laughed without humor. The police, you mean Frank's cousin? No, I kept a copy safe. I was waiting for someone who could actually do something with it. Chuck watched the video again. I'll need a copy. Already made one for you, Sam said, handing Chuck a flash drive. That officer has hurt a lot of people in this town. It's time someone stopped him. Next, Chuck went to see Dr. Ellen Martinez at the hospital. She was the doctor taking care of Lily. When her shift ended, they talked in the hospital cafeteria. Frank, Miller is a monster, Ellen said. Her dark eyes were angry behind her glasses. I've treated at least 7 people he's hurt over the years. Always the same story. They resisted arrest or fell or had an accident. But the injuries tell the real story. Do you have records? Chuck asked. Ellen nodded. I keep my own files. The official ones have a way of disappearing when they involve Officer Miller. She handed Chuck a flash drive. Everything's on here. By evening, Chuck had turned his motel room into a small command center. He put up a map of Eagle Ridge on one wall. He made notes about Frank Miller, Mayor Miller, and Police Chief Miller. He started connecting the dots between all the people Frank had hurt. Chuck wasn't planning a fight. He was planning something much more powerful. As he worked, his phone rang. It was Kate. Dad, something's happened, she said, her voice shaking. 2 officers came to Lily's hospital room while I was getting coffee. They told her she better forget what she saw or there could be more accidents. They scared her, Dad. Chuck's hand tightened on the phone. I'll be right there. He drove back to the hospital. When he walked into Lily's room, she was crying. Kate sat beside her, trying to comfort her. It's okay now, Chuck said. I'm here. He sat with them until Lily fell asleep. Then he looked at Kate. This ends now, he said. Tomorrow we start fighting back. As he drove back to the motel, Chuck knew what he had to do. Frank Miller thought he was untouchable because of his family. He thought no one could stop him. But he had never faced someone like Chuck Norris before. Not the movie star or the internet legend. The real man who knew that true strength wasn't about fighting. It was about standing up for what was right, no matter what. The next morning, Chuck Norris woke up early. He had slept only 4 hours, but that was enough. He looked at the wall of his motel room where he had pinned all the information about Frank Miller. There were photos of people Frank had hurt. Notes about how Mayor Miller and Police Chief Miller protected Frank. It was all connected, like a spider web of lies and hurt. Chuck checked his phone. It was 6 in the morning. Lily would be coming home from the hospital today. He needed to make sure she would be safe. There was a soft knock at the door. Chuck opened it to find Billy Peterson, the district attorney's son who worked at the motel. "Mr. Norris," Billy said in a low voice, "I brought you something." He handed Chuck a thick folder. Inside were papers with the Eagle Ridge Police Department logo. "These are copies of complaints against Frank Miller," Billy explained. "I took them from my dad's home office. He kept them, even though the mayor made him drop the cases." Chuck looked through the papers. There were 15 different complaints, all from people saying Frank had hurt them on purpose. All the cases were closed with no action taken. "Your father could get in trouble if anyone knew you took these," Chuck said. Billy nodded. "I know. But what Frank did to your granddaughter was wrong, and what he's done to so many others too. Someone has to stop him." Chuck put his hand on Billy's shoulder. "Thank you. This helps a lot." After Billy left, Chuck called Kate. "How is Lily this morning?" he asked. "Better," Kate said. "The doctor says she can come home today." "Good. But I don't want you to go back to your house yet," Chuck said. "Those officers know where you live. I've arranged a room for you at the Wild Pine Lodge outside town. A friend of mine owns it. You'll be safe there." "What are you going to do?" Kate asked. "I'm going to talk to some people," Chuck said. "Don't worry. I'm not going to do anything foolish." His first stop was the local newspaper, the Eagle Ridge Gazette. It was a small office with just 3 people working there. The editor was Donna Clark, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair. "Chuck Norris," Donna said when he walked in. "I thought you might show up. I heard about what happened to your granddaughter." "I want to tell you a story," Chuck said, "about Officer Frank Miller and all the people he's hurt in this town." Donna's face turned serious. "I've tried to write about Frank before. Each time Mayor Miller threatened to shut down the paper. We're small, Mr. Norris. We can't fight City Hall." "You won't be fighting alone this time," Chuck said. He put the folder of complaints on her desk. "And I have more evidence. Security camera footage, medical records, witness statements." Donna looked at the folder, then back at Chuck. "This is big, but I'm still afraid of what the Millers will do." "Sometimes being brave doesn't mean not being afraid," Chuck said quietly. "It means doing what's right even when you are afraid." Donna thought for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Let me see what you have." Chuck spent 2 hours showing Donna all the evidence he had collected. When he was done, her eyes were wide. "This is worse than I thought," she said. "But if I publish this, I need to be sure we can back it up. The Millers will come after us hard." "We'll be ready," Chuck promised. His next stop was the district attorney's office. Billy's father, John Peterson, was a thin man with tired eyes. He seemed nervous when Chuck came in. "Mr. Norris," he said, "I've been expecting you." "Then you know why I'm here," Chuck said. John sighed. "Because of what Frank Miller did to your granddaughter, and because of all the other things he's done that I couldn't stop." "Why couldn't you stop him?" Chuck asked, though he already knew the answer. "Every time I tried to build a case, evidence disappeared. Witnesses changed their stories. And Mayor Miller made it clear my job was at risk." John looked ashamed. "I have 3 kids to support, Mr. Norris. I couldn't lose my job." "I understand being afraid for your family," Chuck said. "But how many families has Frank hurt while you looked the other way?" John had no answer for that. "I'm going to give you a chance to do the right thing," Chuck said. "I have evidence, real evidence that can't be ignored. Will you help me bring charges against Frank Miller?" John Peterson looked at the picture of his family on his desk. Then he looked at Chuck. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. As Chuck left the district attorney's office, he saw a police car parked across the street. Frank Miller sat inside watching him. Chuck walked straight toward the car. Frank got out to meet him. "Mr. Norris," Frank said with a fake smile. "Welcome to Eagle Ridge. I heard about your granddaughter's accident. So sad." "It wasn't an accident," Chuck said calmly. "We both know that." Frank's smile disappeared. "Be careful what you say, old man. Being a movie star doesn't put you above the law." No one is above the law, Chuck agreed. Not even you, Officer Miller. Frank took a step closer. Is that a threat? No, Chuck said. It's a promise. What you did to my granddaughter and to all the others before her stops now. Frank laughed. You have no idea who you're dealing with. My uncle runs this town. My cousin runs the police. You can't touch me. We'll see, Chuck said. As Chuck walked away, Frank called after him. You should take your granddaughter and leave town, Norris. Next time it won't just be a broken arm. Chuck turned back. His eyes were hard as steel. There won't be a next time. That evening, Chuck met with Dr. Ellen Martinez and Sam Brown in his motel room. He also invited Donna Clark from the newspaper and John Peterson, the district attorney. I've called you all here because each of you has a piece of the truth, Chuck said. Together we can finally stop Frank Miller and the people who protect him. How? Ellen asked. The Millers control everything in this town. Not everything, Chuck said. They don't control the truth, and they don't control people who are brave enough to stand up for what's right. He showed them his plan. The newspaper would publish the story about Frank Miller and all the people he had hurt. At the same time, John Peterson would file charges based on the video evidence and medical records. But there was more. I've also contacted an old friend at the FBI, Chuck explained. He's looking into Mayor Miller's finances. We think he's been taking money from the town budget. Once the FBI gets involved, none of the Millers will be able to hide. This could work, Donna said. But it's risky. The Millers won't go down without a fight. I know, Chuck said. That's why we need to do this together. We need to show everyone in town that they don't have to be afraid anymore. As the meeting ended, Chuck's phone rang. It was Kate, and she was crying. Dad, she said. Someone just tried to break into our room at the lodge. The manager scared them away, but I saw who it was. It was one of the officers who threatened Lily at the hospital. Chuck's face turned grim. Pack your things. I'm coming to get you now. The plan would have to move faster than he thought. Frank Miller was making his move. But Chuck was ready. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. And Chuck Norris had always stood for justice on screen and off. Chuck drove fast to the Wild Pine Lodge. His hands were tight on the steering wheel. His face was calm, but inside he was angry. Not the kind of anger that makes people do stupid things. The kind that makes them more focused. When he arrived at the lodge, Kate and Lily were waiting outside with their bags. The lodge manager, a big man named Greg, stood with them holding a baseball bat. Mr. Norris, Greg said. I'm sorry this happened. I chased them off, but they'll be back. Thank you for protecting my family, Chuck said. He looked at Kate and Lily. You two okay? Lily nodded, but her face was pale. Her arm was still in its cast. Kate looked scared and angry at the same time. Where are we going to go now? Kate asked. Somewhere safe, Chuck promised. Get in the truck. As they drove away from the lodge, Chuck called Donna Clark at the newspaper. We need to move faster, he said. Frank Miller is getting desperate. Can you run the story tomorrow? We go to print tonight, Donna said. It will be in every mailbox and store by morning. Good. And John Peterson is ready with the charges? Yes, Donna said. He's filing them first thing tomorrow. Chuck ended the call and looked at Kate and Lily in the passenger seat. Where are we going, Grandpa? Lily asked. To a friend's house, Chuck said. Someone Frank Miller won't know about. He drove to a farm outside town. It belonged to Sam Brown's brother, Pete. Pete was waiting at the gate. He let them in, then locked the gate behind them. The house is all ready, Pete said. No one will find you here. The farmhouse was old, but clean. Pete showed them to rooms upstairs. I'll keep watch tonight, Chuck told Kate. You and Lily try to get some sleep. Will this ever be over? Kate asked in a low voice. Will we ever be safe from Frank Miller? Yes, Chuck said firmly. After tomorrow, Frank Miller won't be able to hurt anyone ever again. While Kate and Lily slept, Chuck sat on the porch with Pete. They talked in low voices. The whole town is talking about what's happening, Pete said. People know you're taking on the Millers. Some think you're crazy. Others hope you can do it. What do you think? Chuck asked. Pete smiled a little. I think the Millers have had this coming for a long time. In the morning, Chuck's phone rang. It was Donna Clark. The paper is out, she said. Her voice was excited. We printed extra copies. They're going fast. People are finally talking about what the Millers have done. And John Peterson? He filed the charges an hour ago. Frank Miller is being called in to the station. Chuck thanked her and hung up. He looked at Pete. I need to go into town, Chuck said. Can you keep Kate and Lily safe here? Pete lifted his shotgun. No one gets past me. Chuck drove to Eagle Ridge. As soon as he entered town, he could feel the difference. People were standing in groups talking. Many held copies of the newspaper. The front page headline was big and bold. Officer Frank Miller, A History of Violence. The story laid out everything. The attack on Lily, the other victims over the years, the cover-ups by Mayor Miller and Police Chief Miller. There were photos, and quotes and evidence. It was all there for everyone to see. Chuck drove to the police station. A crowd had gathered outside. In the middle of the crowd stood Frank Miller. He was yelling at everyone, his face red with anger. These are all lies, Frank shouted. Chuck Norris is trying to ruin me because his granddaughter can't ride a bike right. When Frank saw Chuck's truck pull up, he pointed. There he is. The has-been movie star who thinks he can come into our town and tell us what to do. Chuck got out of his truck calmly. The crowd parted to let him through. Frank looked less sure of himself as Chuck came closer. You think you can beat me with newspaper stories? Frank sneered. My uncle will shut that paper down tomorrow. And my cousin will throw out these fake charges. Chuck didn't say anything. He just kept walking toward Frank. The officer took a step back. Stay back, Frank warned. His hand moved to his gun. That's when Police Chief Paul Miller came out of the station. He looked worried. Frank, get in here now, the chief said. The FBI is here. They want to talk to all of us. Frank's face changed. For the first time, he looked scared. The FBI? What do they want? They're looking at the department finances, the chief said. And they have questions about all those complaints that disappeared. Frank turned back to Chuck. You did this, he said in a low, angry voice. You brought the FBI here. You brought them here, Chuck corrected him. Every time you hurt someone and thought you could get away with it, every time you broke the law you were supposed to uphold. Frank's hand tightened on his gun. I could end this right now, he threatened. The crowd gasped. But Chuck didn't move. He wasn't afraid. You could try, Chuck said quietly. But that would just prove everything the newspaper said about you. Is that what you want, Frank? For everyone to see what kind of man you really are? Frank looked around. He saw the faces of the townspeople watching him. He saw the newspaper in their hands. He saw the FBI agents coming out of the police station behind his cousin. His shoulders slumped. Then, in a sudden move, he pulled his gun and pointed it at Chuck. Frank, no! Chief Miller shouted. The crowd screamed. But before Frank could pull the trigger, something amazing happened. Not a fancy kick or punch like in the movies. Something much more powerful. The people of Eagle Ridge moved forward as one. They surrounded Chuck, standing between him and Frank's gun. Men, women, even teenagers. They formed a human shield. Put the gun down, Frank, Sam Brown said from the crowd. It's over. Dr. Ellen Martinez stepped forward. We're not afraid of you anymore. Billy Peterson and his father, John, joined them. You're going to face justice, Frank, John said. The real kind, not the kind you made up. Frank looked at all the faces, people he had bullied and frightened for years. Now they were standing together against him. His hand shook. Then, slowly, he lowered the gun. 2 FBI agents came forward and took the gun from Frank's hand. They put handcuffs on him and led him into the police station. Chief Miller followed, his head down. The crowd cheered. Some people cried. Others came up to shake Chuck's hand and thank him. But Chuck wasn't done yet. He looked toward the town hall where Mayor Miller still sat in his office. That was the next stop. The mayor was the root of all this. He had protected Frank for years. He had helped cover up crimes, and according to Chuck's FBI friend, he had stolen money from the town. As Chuck walked toward the town hall, the people of Eagle Ridge walked with him. Not because he was Chuck Norris, action star, but because he had shown them how to stand up for what was right. The crowd moved with Chuck toward the town hall. It was a short walk, but an important one. Years of fear were ending with each step. Town hall was a small brick building with white columns in front. Mayor Richard Miller had been in office for 20 years. No one ran against him in elections anymore. Everyone knew it was pointless. As Chuck and the people of Eagle Ridge approached the building, they saw police cars and black FBI vehicles already parked outside. Agents in suits were going in and out, carrying boxes of papers. Standing at the top of the steps was Chuck's old friend, FBI agent Joe Ward. They had worked together years ago when Chuck was a Texas Ranger before his movie career. Joe was older, now with gray hair, but his eyes were the same. "Chuck," Joe said with a nod. "Looks like you stirred up quite a storm here." "Just helping the truth come out," Chuck replied. Joe looked at the crowd behind Chuck. "These people have been waiting a long time for someone to stand up to the Millers." "Is the mayor inside?" Chuck asked. "He was," Joe said. "We arrested him 20 minutes ago. Financial fraud, abuse of power, obstruction of justice. The list goes on. We found offshore accounts where he's been hiding town money for years." A cheer went up from the crowd when they heard this. Some people hugged each other, others cried with relief. "What about Frank and the police chief?" Chuck asked. "Frank Miller is facing assault charges for what he did to your granddaughter, plus a dozen other cases we've already found. The chief is being charged with covering up crimes and misusing police funds." Joe shook his head. This whole town was under the control of one corrupt family. Chuck turned to face the people of Eagle Ridge. "It's over," he told them. "The Millers can't hurt anyone anymore." An old man stepped forward from the crowd. "What happens now? Who will be mayor? Who will be police chief?" Joe answered. "The town council will need to appoint temporary leaders until elections can be held. The state police will send officers to help run the department for now." Donna Clark from the newspaper raised her hand. "The council is meeting this afternoon in the high school gym. Everyone is welcome to come. We need to start rebuilding our town." The crowd began to break up. People had a lot to talk about, a lot to process. Some went to the high school to wait for the council meeting. Others went to spread the news to friends and family. Chuck walked back to his truck. He needed to tell Kate and Lily that it was safe to come home. When he arrived at Pete Brown's farm, Kate was sitting on the porch. She stood up quickly when she saw his truck. "Is it over?" she asked as Chuck got out. "Yes," Chuck said. "The FBI arrested all 3 Millers. Frank is facing charges for hurting Lily and many others. The town is free of them now." Kate hugged her father tight. "Thank you," she whispered. Lily came out of the house, moving carefully because of her arm. "Did you beat up Frank Miller, Grandpa?" she asked. Chuck smiled. "No. Something much better happened. The whole town stood up to him together. That's more powerful than any punch or kick." They drove back to Kate and Lily's house. Neighbors came out to welcome them home. People brought food and flowers. They wanted to show support for Lily and to thank Chuck. That evening, Chuck went to the council meeting at the high school gym. It was packed with people. The 6 council members sat at a table on the stage. They looked nervous. They had always done whatever Mayor Miller told them to do. Now they had to make decisions themselves. The head of the council, Mary Wilson, called the meeting to order. "First," she said, "I want to apologize to everyone. We should have stopped the Millers years ago. We were afraid, and that was wrong." The crowd was quiet. People nodded. Many felt the same way. "Now we need to move forward," Mary continued. "We need a temporary mayor and police chief until elections can be held in 90 days. People began to make suggestions. For police chief, they nominated Carl Johnson, a former state trooper who lived in town. He was honest and fair. Everyone respected him. For mayor, many people shouted Chuck's name. They wanted him to lead the town. Chuck stood up. "Thank you," he said, "but I'm not staying in Eagle Ridge. My home is in Texas. My work is there too. People looked disappointed. Then Chuck pointed to Dr. Ellen Martinez. Ellen kept records of Frank Miller's victims for years, Chuck said. She stood up for the truth when it was dangerous to do so. She would make a good mayor. Ellen looked surprised. Me? But I'm just a doctor. You're also brave and honest, Chuck said. That's what this town needs now. The council voted. Carl Johnson would be temporary police chief. Ellen Martinez would be temporary mayor. The crowd cheered. After the meeting, Ellen found Chuck. I don't know how to be a mayor, she said. Just be honest, Chuck told her. Listen to people. Do what's right, not what's easy. That's all any leader can do. The next morning, Chuck packed his truck. It was time to go home. Kate and Lily came to say goodbye. Do you have to leave so soon? Lily asked. Her arm was still in its cast, but the fear was gone from her eyes. I need to get back to the ranch, Chuck said. And you two will be fine now. The town is changing. Good people are in charge. Because of you, Kate said. Chuck shook his head. No. The people of Eagle Ridge just needed someone to show them they could stand up for themselves. They did the hard part. Lily hugged her grandfather. Will you come back to visit? Of course, Chuck promised. And you can come to the ranch this summer when your arm is better. As Chuck drove out of town, he passed the police station. Carl Johnson was putting up a new sign. Eagle Ridge Police Department, to protect and serve all citizens equally. Chuck smiled. This was how real change happened, not with fists or fancy moves, not with one hero saving the day, but with ordinary people finding the courage to stand together and do what was right. At the edge of town, Chuck saw a billboard. It had been put up overnight. It showed a picture of the town and simple words. Thank you, Chuck Norris. From the Uri, people of Eagle Ridge. Chuck shook his head but smiled. He didn't need thanks. Seeing justice done was enough. He turned on the radio and headed for Texas, already thinking about the work waiting at his ranch. And in Eagle Ridge, a new day had begun. Frank Miller would face trial for his crimes. Mayor Miller and Police Chief Miller would answer for theirs too. The town would heal. And when people told the story of how it happened, they wouldn't talk about roundhouse kicks or action movie stunts. They would talk about truth and courage and standing together. They would talk about how one man showed an entire town how to be brave. That was the real legend of Chuck Norris. Not the jokes or the movies, but the simple truth that justice is always worth fighting for.